Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. My name is Sean Thompson, Vice President, Corporate Development and Investor Relations for Westhaven Gold. The title or theme of today's webinar is Multi-Million Ounce Potential on Canada's Emerging Spences Bridge Gold Belt. There will be a Q&A session at the end, so please submit your questions on the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. As I go through this intro, I'm going to play a little video just in the background. Go. Modern exploration on this belt really only began in 2001 with prospector Ed Ballon. He was following up on some government regional geochem surveys and anomalies. Ed is widely recognized for identifying the Spences Bridge epithermal gold belt in southern BC. Westhaven's initial gold discovery in late 2018, early 2019 proves that epithermal mineralization has been preserved in this belt. We will give a brief recap of some of the bonanza grades drilled on both the Shovelnose and Skoonka gold properties. Remind you that Westhaven has amassed one of the largest land holdings in the belt with 4 projects covering 37,000 hectares of ground, and our unique strategic advantage being located just off a highway near cities and infrastructure, equating to low-cost exploration, especially important given rampant inflation affecting the mining sector these days. The 1.1 million ounce maiden resource of Shovelnose is just the start of what could eventually become a multi-million ounce gold camp. Other notable world-class gold camps of this style of mineralization include Kupol in Russia, Pajingo, Australia, Fruta del Norte in Ecuador, El Peñón, Chile, Round Mountain, Nevada, and of course Hishikari in Japan, where similar epithermal veining has produced about 8 million ounces of gold since 1985 and has over 100 such vein swarms on the property. We hope today to demonstrate the considerable potential for Shovelnose and our other properties on this belt to find additional vein zones. Please see this morning's news release for 2023 exploration and drill plans. We will be highlighting this year's strategy, which includes a multi-pronged approach of following up on drilling targets within the Zone 1 trend, the FMN to Tower Mick Gap, plus Franz and Franz Northwest, drilling new targets outside the Zone 1 trend, and working all 4 of our properties within this belt. With us today on this webinar, we have President and CEO Gareth Thomas, Exploration Manager Peter Fischl, who has over 30 years of exploration experience, the past 20 of which has been concentrated on epithermal gold deposits, CFO Sean Pollard, and special guest moderator from West Palm Beach, Florida, Robert Sinn, aka CEO Technician on Twitter, Goldfinger on CEO.ca, Portfolio Manager, former national chess champion, analyst and editor of Energy and Gold. With that, I'll pass it along to Rob. Rob, please go ahead.
Wow, I've never been introduced as a chess champion as an adult, so I really appreciate that, Sean. It's actually true. I did win the National High School Chess Championship in 1996, but it's something that's long in my past. So let's talk about, Westhaven. When I first came across the company, it was literally 5 years ago. It's like February 2018. And it was, Westhaven Ventures at that time. Now it's transitioned to Westhaven Gold for obvious reasons. And when I first spoke with the management team, Sean Pollard, it was a story that was very early stage, about a $10 million market cap in early 2018. And honestly, the company had just sort of been languishing for a couple of years at this relatively low valuation. And the Thomas family had been investing quite a bit in the financings to keep the company going. And at the time, I think that the insiders owned more than 40% of the total shares outstanding. And so when I really dug into the company and understood the story, it checked a lot of my boxes, including a really tight share structure. Management really seemed to be good stewards of capital. cared a lot about the company's progress and finances. In fact, I think there were some years where the total corporate overhead was like $300,000, which is totally unheard of nowadays, but that was 6-7 years ago. Things change, costs go up, inflation, et cetera. But at the time, it really checked my boxes, and I saw the potential of the Spences Bridge Gold Belt, the potential of a gold camp in a great location in Canada, and then the story, the history of the Fraser, River gold rush of the late 1850s, millions of ounces being pulled out of the rivers and streams of this area of Canada, and just a great history, and that's one of the things that I love about the mining sector, is that not only do you have the company and the opportunity to both profit and to lose capital, but you have these great stories and the history that goes with these projects in these areas of the world, and even the formation of the earth, right? So Westhaven and the Spences Bridge Gold Belt has a deep and rich history, and when these claims were staked and the projects were put together in the early 2000s all the way up to 2011, this is a cherry-picked set of assets in a great location, and I just saw the potential upside was enormous. And then, of course, October 2018, the results from the South Zone came. Extremely high grade intercepts over wide grade, over wide intervals, and the rest is history. And so now, fast forward to today, and obviously we're fast forwarding through a lot through 5 years, but fast forward to today, I feel like the opportunity today in Westhaven is very similar to the opportunity that existed in February and March of 2018, albeit things have changed. More than a million ounces of gold and silver have been found at Shovelnose. The market cap of the company has changed. The share structure has evolved. A major gold, royalty company, Franco, has made a large investment in the company. But here we are today, and one of my favorite sayings in the mining sector is, what I've learned over 20 years is that it's usually best to buy when it's quiet and not many people are paying attention and the expectations are low, and to sell when it's loud and there's a lot of wild optimistic forecasts made, right? And so maybe Westhaven had that loud period at the end of 2018 and early 2019, but now it's definitely feeling very quiet, and the expectations seem relatively low. But yet, obviously, at Shovelnose, we have 1.1 million gold equivalent ounces in resource. We have even more gold intercepts that have been, that have happened in the last couple of years. So obviously, that 1.1 million ounces is quite likely quite a bit larger today, although we don't know that for sure. And then we have the potential of the entire property package, including Skoonka, and when I think back to that gold rush of the late 1850s, and you look at a map of this area, and Skoonka is the one that's closest to a lot of those events that happened, at that time, and a lot, where a lot of that gold was pulled out of these bodies of, water. And it just makes sense when you look at the maps, you look at the magnetics, the soil, anomalies at Skoonka. It just seems like, man, there's got to be something there. And obviously, the Westhaven team has got to find it, and that's the process. And it's not an easy process. It takes work, and then it takes trying to learn from the exploration, that you do, and improve upon it in the future. And so that's what the team is doing, and that's what started at the end of last year. They drilled 15 holes at Skoonka. Definitely a lot was learned in that process that will help to guide the program this year. Yeah, and so just as an investor, I look at the investment that Franco made at 40 cents a share, and then taking the 2%, royalty at Shovelnose, and I say, well, that's a very important validation. That's a very important guidepost of valuation for me. And today I can buy the stock at 35 cents a share. So that's 10% less than what Franco paid. You could argue that the opportunity is even larger now than it was 4 months ago. There's more information. There was a huge intersection that was made at the Franz zone at Shovelnose. And so the opportunity is very large, and yet we as investors are able to actually buy the shares 10% less than this multi-billion-dollar gold company did. And so seems like it's a great opportunity, and that's why I agreed to do this webinar with the team, because I thought it's such a great opportunity where the downside is relatively low and the upside is at least as large as it's ever been, I think. And so I guess that's the positive side, and those are the opportunities that the company has. And then I would just say the challenges, to be fair and balanced, the challenges are that this has been a public company for more than 10 years now, right? And in the junior mining sector, it's tough to continue to meet that bar. And the results that this team has put out over the last 5 years has set a very high bar. And so that's a challenge that the company has to, leap over. And when I talk to other, when I talk to other investors in the sector, they say, well, I hope Westhaven can make a new discovery, because they really need a new discovery. They need to show that this is a gold belt, a gold camp, and it's not just the South Zone, right? And so if you look at the news the company put out here this morning, they address that, right? And they have a lot of targets, and they have what seems to be a very clear plan, of attack, this year, well-funded with more than $7 million in the treasury. I think they're going to get back a couple million more from the, government. Who knows when, maybe 3 or 4 months from now, but that will help to fund the programs, this year. So the company is fully funded for the next year with a great plan of action to continue to expand and make new discoveries in the Spences Bridge Gold Belt. So with that, hi, Gareth, let me hand it off to you, and you can tell us a lot more about that.
Well, thank you very much, Robert. We appreciate you being here, and thank you to everybody participating today. We plan to attack here we'll run a bit through our presentation. I know probably a lot of you are fairly familiar with Westhaven, and importantly, we have Peter Fischl, our exploration manager, here to answer some of these technical questions and run through a bit of our presentation. So I will begin here by starting with the verify deck here. And let me just swing you around. And as Robert mentioned there, and Sean mentioned, there's been people exploring this area since the early 2000s, but Westhaven was formed, I'll mention, really based on the Shovelnose property. This was our qualifying transaction back in 2010, and we went public with this in 2011. And the big thing, we got a good team of explorers here, and we felt this belt was extremely underexplored. Fast forward 12 years from when we put this company together, we feel it's almost more underexplored. They're finding so many new things on this belt. And of course, we feel we have the preeminent position on this belt as well, which I'll show you here shortly. But from our standpoint, exploration is the lifeblood of the mining industry. And you need exploration, you need new discoveries for any part of this mining business. So we like what we're doing here, exploring, and there's a lot more exploration to be done. I will be making some forward-looking statements, so please keep that in mind through the duration of this presentation. That goes for Peter, Sean, and Sean as well. Skip ahead here. Oh, sorry there. This thing's blocking my way there, Sean. There we are. So without further ado, we'll start off with the verify deck. This takes just a couple seconds to load. There we are. We'll show you a little bit about the Shovelnose. Then we'll start, we'll carry on with some Skoonka and Prospect Valley updates as well. But as Robert was mentioning there here, 2023 is going to be a big year for Westhaven as we have many targets that we're going to be drilling here this year. So there's going to be a lot of excitement over that. Just start you off here, look at Shovelnose. I'm sure a few of you are somewhat familiar with this. South zone where we have the resource, the 1.1 million ounces in both the indicated and inferred, 75% in the indicated there. This is a little lay of the land. You can see fairly gentle rolling hills, not big mountainous terrain. Over 400 kilometers of roads here on this property as well, and quite heavily forested as well. Look at our main access road that comes in down to the Brookmere Road, and you have the Coquihalla just off to your right of the screen there as well. About 5 kilometers to the Coquihalla off this access road, and even closer down to the Franz area there. Let's get a little closer in the south zone where we made the discovery, which Robert mentioned in October of 2018. 1814 here, we drilled 17.7 meters of 24.5 grams per ton gold, 109 grams per ton silver. Doesn't look like it so much on this this visual here, but this was 100 meters away. This was 1815, which we drilled about 45 meters of 9 grams gold there. And if you look up to the kind of off to the north in my mind, but off to the top left of your screen there, that's where this 4 kilometer trend goes, just to give you an idea here as I go to the next slide to where we are today at the Franz and FMN, where we had some good success in 2022. First though, we'll show you the vein zone 1 here, which is outlined in the red. This is a good place to give people, especially folks who aren't overly familiar with the property or Westhaven, where that red line is, which we'll zoom into shortly and give you a run through of the resource. The majority of the 17,000 hectare property not only hasn't had drilling, but a lot of it, we're still boots on ground exploration and finding new things almost daily when we're out here. So we've delineated a lot of targets around here, which Peter and I will touch on shortly. But the main takeaway from this particular slide or image here is outside of this 4 kilometer trend, majority of this is not being drilled or properly tested. So, and we're coming up with all sorts of targets here. There's going to be a lot more of these vein swarms. It just takes a bit of time testing them, as you'll see here shortly. But we'll zoom in and give you a quick run through of the resource here. This is an open pit scenario, and I should be mentioning here, as it might come up in questions as well, we're looking to have the underground component of this resource out sometime in Q2 or Q3. So we were hoping to do this all kind of end of last year, but with the amount of drilling we were doing, we still have to put some of those new drill holes into the underground component. But we'll just show you the open pit scenario here. Vein zone red in 1, I mentioned the 4 kilometer long trend. Vein zone 2 in blue there, and vein zone 3 in green. And I'll just fiddle with this a little bit, which never ends well, but you can see the vein zone traced right up here to the northwest of Franz, which we had in our news release today, is going to be a focus moving forward to the northwest there, as we feel we didn't properly attack that back in 2020. We think there's Peter and the team have figured out what's going on there to the northwest. So that actually is going to be our first target we drill back here starting in the next couple weeks. Now we'll show you where we're starting the second rig as well. Just go underground here and have a look at this model there. Here you have 0.35 to 1 gram in the green color, 1 gram to 3 grams in the yellow color. Then the red there is greater than 3 grams. You'll see a large component of this is in the red, the plus 3 grams, hence the underground component. We haven't put any sort of economics on either of these scenarios. So yeah, we're not sure which will be best, but we know they're both look pretty good, and it's certainly a great start for Shovelnose in the south zone. take a few minutes here to carry on here. So this outlined in red here, as I mentioned, was the vein zone 1 for the most part. And just because you don't see the vein zone connected in here, so these red blobs are anything we modeled as greater than 12% quartz. And so there's still this vein zone carries along here, but it's just not greater than 12% quartz. So and this little pink, I'm sure people are wondering what the heck that is. That is vein zone 4, which we've intercepted in a few holes at depth. Goal here, as well as we start up back in the Franz, is to get more intersects shallower on this vein zone 4, as something similar happened in South Zone. Well, so we hope, was when we were drilling deep holes, namely 1811, hitting some interesting things like we're seeing here at depth. Then, of course, you get a little bit higher up like we did in 1814, and boom, you hit this high-grade stuff. So we're very keen to get back to here as well. This is obviously still on this trend, but we'll show you some outside targets as well. Just keeping time in mind here. I won't run through all these intercepts, but I'm sure many of you are quite familiar with them. I mentioned a few of them there. South Zone, obviously some great grade though, and I think, as Robert mentioned there, we're ideally would like to find a lot more of these on the property. So that's, if we had a perfect analog to what gets us here in terms of geophysics, geochemistry, LIDAR, we would use it, and and that's what we're doing with a lot of these tools we have. And we're trying to sort of obviously replicate in how we discovered the South Zone, but these things are all very different and all have their own challenges. But obviously at FMN, we feel we're very close there, which I'll touch on here now. Highest grade intercept ever returned on the property was 212 here, which we announced last April, 23 meters of 37 grams and 200 grams silver. We still feel there's even room around here to follow up on that. And FMN, we think obviously going to add some ounces. How many, we're not sure, but we'll be continuing on drilling until we think we're adding additional ounces. And what's important to note there, I mentioned that plus 12, greater than 12 grams quartz veining area that you didn't see. This is this quartz breccia here, where you have some grades like 53 meters of a gram, 27 meters of almost 2 grams within this quartz breccia. So this becomes a very important piece of this puzzle, if you will, is this quartz breccia. And we have Emily Bonet, fully model, almost a full-time modeler with this now. She's done a great job piecing this together. And of course, with the drill, this has become an important part of the FMN. As Robert said, it's when you drill your 17 meters at 24 grams off the top, you're setting that bar pretty high. What sometimes people forget is you're getting very economic mineralization at 2 gram material when you're right at surface, right off a highway. So something to keep in mind. Last hole drilled of last year, or one of the last holes, I should say, was this 12 meters of 40 grams. This is an outcrop at surface. We knew this was here, but we wanted to drill this to see our last best intercept here was in 2020, was 7.85 meters, 14.84 grams. And we knew we were getting a little deep there. So this hole was actually a 50 meter step out from that hole. It's not like we were right on top of the outcrop twinning it. And we intercepted a very high grade hit. This one was on top of that. So there's actually 2 zones we're seeing here. They are almost 4 meters of 40 grams. Then hit this. So this is not, a lot more work is needed here at Franz. And I think I'll let Peter just switch to the next. Just sticking with our news release here, we're going to be talking a bit about Curtin, Brookmere, and this hydrothermal breccia 2, which we made, albeit not a barn burner or something, a big arm waver last year. But the fact is we hit a decent amount of gold in this hydrothermal breccia 2 within 7 holes. So we'll be back there. And we're going to discuss these other holes here. But I think first we'll let Peter talk about the Franz here. Peter, I'll just get to the slide there if you don't mind. I'll just skip through here. Yeah, Peter, if you don't mind, this is a long section, obviously, from the South Zone up to the Franz. We're going to be doing a bit of drilling in between here, the FMN and the tower. as we discussed in our news release today as well. Not a big, we still a lot of drilling to be done in here, but our first target here will be in the Franz, which Peter, I'll just hit the next slide. I think you have a slide to share. You're just gonna talk over this, Peter.
Okay, yeah, so that's a zoomed in view of the long section of vein zone 1 in the Franz area. So we've got the outcrop over on the to the right there, where the zone 1 actually outcrops, actually the only known outcrop of zone 1. But we chased that vein zone further northwest, and the 5 northernmost holes there, they're all they kept hitting it, about 1,100 meters and shallower, deeper, I should say. So those are deeper hits on vein zone 1. We want to try to stay up around the 1,200 meter level. So we're going to go back there and try to get some shallow, closer to surface. We feel that there is, potential for stronger grade mineralization. So the key thing here, though, is the vein zone 1 is open to the northwest. We don't see any big fault offsets in terms of lateral offsets of the vein zone. It's still there, trending at about 310 degrees off to the northwest. So, and we're going to try some shallow cuts over a 300 meter strike length, and then continue chasing it further to the northwest, seeing how, depending how we do with those shallower cuts over the known vein zone there. So, so we certainly have an interesting target to keep chasing this vein zone 1 to the northwest. It's certainly open, and there may still be a potential for grade up here. So yeah, as long as we can stay in the 1150, 1200 meter elevation range. So yeah, we certainly have with some more follow-up drilling here for sure.
Okay, thank you there, Peter. And just an analog here, which Peter will come back to us after I stop sharing here. But this is a Pachingo mine in Australia. Some of you might be familiar with this, but we've just sort of put our vein zone 4, or 4 kilometer long vein zone. I think we call it zone 1 trend is the new name for it up along here. And this was actually brought to our attention by somebody who worked on Pachingo and said, this is a good looking analog here. But seeing as Peter spent some time over 12 years at Kupol in Russia, I'll stop sharing here, let Peter bring up and tell you a little bit about some similarities in Kupol there.
So I'm just showing here the 2 volcanic belts. Here's the Spences Bridge Belt, in which Westhaven operates 4 gold projects. And over on the right here is the Otos-Chukotka volcanic belt. Now, this is something I have some familiarity with. I spent a third of my career looking for epithermal gold deposits in this belt of volcanics in the Russian Far East. I worked with here with Bima Gold, B2 Gold, and Kinross Gold, chasing epithermal gold deposits in the region around Kupol. So, and the reason why this is a really interesting analog to the Spences Bridge Belt is the geological setting. We're situated on a continental arc that borders on the Pacific, and 2, the age, mid-Cretaceous in age. So, and this is exactly what we're dealing with over in the Spences Bridge Belt. Now, this belt of volcanics in Russia here, it hosts multi-million ounce deposits, like for example, the Kupol deposit, which I'm quite familiar with. So, again, that adds, to the potential for the Spences Bridge Belt to the story here for hosting multi-million ounce deposits as well. So we have very similar analog in terms of geological setting and age to what we see over in Russia. So
brings us to our next, speaking of which, Peter will talk a little bit on our news release we went out today on, I think we covered the Franz there. You see the Franz target, which will be starting, rigs up there right now, in fact. Then we got the FMN tower, kind of the gap in between there, where we've delineated a few holes. We got the hydrothermal breccia 2, and quite a bit off trend and getting quite far away from this main zone is the Curtin and Brookmere. These have been around for quite some time. We did have some follow-up prospecting done, and the Curtin was discovered in 2020. We discussed that in the news release a bit, and Peter, I thought maybe you could just provide a little bit of color on these targets, hydrothermal breccia 2, Curtin, Brookmere, why we are going to drill test them, and what we think where they are in the system. I think would be good for people to get a bit more of an understanding.
Okay, so over on the west side, we have the Brookmere and Curtin showings. The Brookmere, that goes back to Ed Balon's days when he was in the bush up here. And there's a known vein system that we feel is in the shallow part of a hydrothermal system. So it outcrops over a few hundred meters strike length, but it's never been drill tested. So we really want to get a drill over there this season. So yeah, and then to the northwest, we have Curtin. There's some historic trenches, maybe 60s era trenches, that exposed a bunch of rhyolite. Certainly want to get a drill over there to Curtin. Then we've already mentioned the fence in the north. Then let's go over to the hydrothermal breccia number 2. So this is a new area based on some geochemistry, some breccia outcrop, some geophysics, a new target that we drill tested this past year in 2 fences of drill holes spaced out 400 meters apart. And we hit a zone of quartz carbonate veining, kind of trending northwesterly, subparallel to the vein zone 1 trend, about 1.2 kilometers to the northeast of South Zone. So, and we were getting some interesting results on this. Yeah, so it looks like it will be another busy year chasing targets on vein zone 1 trend, plus also off the trend to the east and west. So yeah, so it should be an interesting year for drilling up here.
And just in terms of timing purposes there, I'm sure people have some questions. And we ended here in France with the 1 rig, we plan about half a dozen or so holes up and around France and testing this vein zone 4. And we'll likely continue that rig back up to around the FMN tower. Well, staggered, we'll be starting a 2nd rig down here in Brookmere Curtin, just to give people a lay of the land here. So that 2nd rig will be starting down here by Curtin Brookmere, and that's how we'll go for the first part of the drill season. And yeah, and I'll let Peter. We can discuss a little bit here about the Skoonka Gold project. I know Robert likes this and likes the fact we've tested another one. And just to get everyone just somewhat familiar here, I'm just going to skip back.
Gareth, let's maybe let Rob jump in and just share his thoughts about Skoonka, and then he can bring you in.
Yeah, that's great. So I call it Skoonka, but I hear you guys call it Skoonka.
Skoonka,
you know, I
you're
guess
right.
It's okay.
It's the Canadian-American way of hearing things, Robert.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny, you know. It's a matter of taste. Yeah, so if you go back to early 2018, when I first bought shares and first got interested in the Westhaven story, the flagship or the project that was going to be drilled next was the Skoonka project. And maybe some people don't know, but there were forest fires around that time, in the area, and the attention changed to the Shovelnose, and that obviously changed everything. But I think that you would admit in the back of your mind for the last 5 years you thought, man, we got to get back up there, we got to follow up on those holes from 2005, 2006. In fact, at Skoonka in 2005 to the 2006 time frame, Strongbow I think drilled 12.8 meters of 20.2 grams per ton gold at Skoonka. You guys followed up on that last year, had some good results. You actually hit some high grade in a few holes, maybe not as broad as that intercept, but there's definitely a lot of smoke there. And if I look at some of the soil anomalies, mag lows in your presentation and also in the news release this morning, it's pretty exciting. There's a lot of targets at Skoonka that look very promising, where you have this sort of textbook soil anomaly over a mag low, and you've only drilled one little portion of this property. So it seems very interesting to me. Seems quite exciting from an investment standpoint. If you make a new discovery there, somehow you were to drill another hole like that, 10 meters plus of 20 grams or 30 grams, God forbid. I think it would really open up the map for the entire gold belt. And, we talking about maybe a possible gold camp here in the Spences Bridge. And I also see in the news, this morning you guys put out that you got plans for the other two projects as well, which includes the Skoonka North project. And I remember when I went to Shovelnose in 2018, and we were chatting on the way there and at the project, Gareth, you said actually the Skoonka North project in a way is your favorite project, and you'd like to do more, work there. So I'm glad to see you guys are going to get back out there this year, with some, work in the field. And I think the fact that, Westhaven is now working all 4 projects simultaneously in the same year, it makes it a much more exciting story, because this kind of work, the real exploration work that makes, new discovery like a South Zone, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes the, boots on the ground, which you guys are doing now this year. And Skoonka obviously is that lower hanging fruit, because there have been high grade gold intercepts there, and you've done quite a bit of work there already. So you have some optimized targets. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about the Skoonka program and where you guys are going to go next there.
Yeah, and Peter, I think you have well, I'll stop sharing here. I think you have something you can share now, Peter. Do you want to talk anything about this one right now itself?
Well, we got we're zoomed in on the JJ and JJ West on your graphic there. We'll just hang on for a sec while we talk about that. Yeah, so we went back and kind of did some follow-up drilling, where we're getting some interesting results, confirming some of the drilling that Strongbow did. And we then kind of stepped out to the southwest, a further 0.6 and 0.9 kilometers, and continued to hit that vein zone. Now we have a combined strike length of about 1.5, 1.6 kilometers. So, and we're getting some interesting results even in the JJ West area. So, in the whole 14B there, I think what was it, 98 meters of 0.19, including locally up to 4.4 grams over 1.2 meters, and in the southwest there in the JJ West target. So yeah, that's a vein zone of some significance there. 1.6 kilometer long strike length now on an east northeast trend, which is actually a common theme. I'll be talking more about that in a few seconds here. That east northeast trend. So, but yeah. Maybe I'll bring up. I'll try doing
I'll stop sharing
here.
I'll stop sharing here, Peter, and I'll just just before I do that, Robert did mention we actually before Strongbow and Almaden did test a couple areas with drilling the Deadwood and the Ember and the Backburn, but just a few holes. But interestingly, they all hit quite anomalous gold. So. Without, I think 31 of the 40 holes were in this JJ zone, but there were quite some nice anomalous holes up in these areas and some phenomenal soil geochemistry numbers. And of course, you see the mag lows there too. So yeah, a lot of smoke here. And as you mentioned.
Okay, I'm going to screen share. Slideshow. Okay, I'm just gonna go to the next. Okay, there we go. Let's see, get the laser pointer going here. Okay, you guys can see it. So we're kind of zoomed in on the northern 2/3 of the Skoonka project here. Again, the sort of dark blue blobs, those are your magnetic lows. The green dashed polygons, those are your geochem anomalies. And you can see with all the shorings and zones here, there's kind of 2 broad trends. There's the JJ, what we call the JJ Bermuda trend to the south here. And then further north, we have the Deadwood Backburn trend. So again, you can see the black dots are historic drill holes. The red dots are the drill holes from this past season that Westhaven drilled. Again, here's the JJ and JJ West with associated magnetic lows and Sojicam anomalies. And then this kind of trend continues, a bit of a mag lower here, and then into the Bermuda area here, a large magnetic low with an associated geochem anomaly. Certainly want to get back there and see what's happening on the surface there. A bit further north is the Gold Creek showing. Again, another east-northeast turning magnetic low, kind of subparallel to what we see at JJ. And again, some Sojicam anomaly and some rocks running up to 8.5 grams per ton gold. So that's kind of a intriguing target, certainly with some follow-up. A bit further north is the Deadwood backburn trend. So on the west side here is the Deadwood showing. That's actually two zones of mineralization traced in trenching and drilling over strike lengths of up to 130 meters. And they're still open. Again, they're on a sort of east-northeast trend similar to JJ. We got 4 drill holes here that return intercepts of +3 grams over 2 to almost 5 meters. A couple holes highlighted here, 3.84 grams over 2.1 meters, and then 3.44 grams over 4.67 meters. That's on the over in the Deadwood. And then further to the southeast, we have the backburn and a few holes here. One returned a rather broad intercept, 13.5 meters of 0.65 grams gold. That's kind of certainly an intriguing intercept there that definitely want to do some more follow-up work on. So there's a lot of besides the where we drilled last year, JJ. There's other zones, some of which have been drilled that offer certainly some interesting potential for additional mineralization. So this coming summer, we'll be certainly getting boots on the ground up there, doing some follow-up field work, and then potentially maybe by the fall, getting a drill rig up there and start following up on some more drilling up here. So so it looks like it'll be another a busy season up at Skoonka here.
Yeah, thanks. And we'll be getting back here, boots on ground, when the conditions allow us to, likely sometime in late May, early June. Skoonka North, just so you know, Robert, you mentioned there, Skoonka North. I like that project, namely because it's the highest silt gold anomalies on the entire Spences Bridge Gold Belt. So we actually haven't, we've done a little bit of work there, but not a ton. So that's an interesting one for sure. But lastly here, before we get into the Q&A, which I think we should hear pretty shortly, Peter, maybe let's just talk a little bit about Prospect Valley, which we acquired in 2015. And we drilled that, a small program, about 1,500 meters in 2016. We've done some follow-up work there since, and we have a target, once again, goes back to Ed Ballon here, the late, great Ed Ballon, about he kind of discovered this area known as the Bonanza Zone. And Peter, I think you have a share again. And I think if you can just show that the Kupol map, just to give people the reference where PV is in relation, it's in between Shovelnose and Skoonka. But if you can just show that map quickly, then I believe you can have a couple maps there to show what we're going to be doing on Prospect Valley.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
And someone here is saying your signal's not as strong here.
Yeah,
might be a bit late for that.
I know I'm seeing pops-ups that I've got an.
That's okay. Yeah, the slide, a couple before that on the Kupol there, the Kupol comparison, you can just show the one before this one. It just shows the PV, just to give people reference there. There you are. Yeah. So people can see there's Shovelnose, Prospect Valley, Skoonka Creek, and Skoonka North, and Prospect Valley is one we'll be discussing here.
Yeah, so it's about 30 kilometers west of Merritt, between almost halfway between Shovelnose and Skoonka Creek there. Okay, let's go through the slides. And okay, so here's a bit of a graphic here on the entire Prospect Valley project. Roughly 15 kilometers north-south by up to 10 kilometers east-west. It's a large project. So I'm just showing magnetics right here. You can see there's some prominent magnetic lows. And then overlaying that is the anomalous soils, the red and multicolored circles, and then some also the stream sediment anomalies. inverted triangles here. So you can see we've got this 5 kilometer long trend, what we call the discovery trend of anomalous soils. You can't really see there's a coincident northeast magnetic low that kind of follows those soils, but then just offset and continuing further to the northeast is a continuation of that magnetic low, extending another 3 kilometers to this area of coincident anomalous stream sets. You can see the yellow triangles right there. So we got potentially, an 8 kilometer long trend of, weakly tested or marginally tested targets. So certainly interesting feature right here. Now further to the south in this cluster right here, this is the Bonanza target. And yeah, this goes back to Ed's early work in this area. So I'm just going to zoom in on the Bonanza targets. Again, this is magnetics overlaying by the red circles here are where we're getting rock floats collected in a series of streams contained within this tightly constrained drainage basin. And a bunch of these rock float samples, they're running plus 1 gram. Locally higher. There's a 6.4 gram sample. Over here was a 43.34 gram sample. So and in the sort of the headwaters to the north here, we get these some interesting looking magnetic lows. So certainly, certainly at some point, maybe this season, we want to get back into this area and do some more follow-up work. We certainly got something happening for sure in terms of anomalous quartz floats and potentially maybe associated with some of these being sourced from some of these interesting magnetic lows in the headwaters of this drainage basin here. So yeah.
Great, Peter. Thank you. I think we should start the Q&A session. Rob, can you see the questions?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. So Paul Murphy asked about the potential bulk sample at Franz. So what would be the size and the potential timing of any bulk sample at Franz?
Just being in the fact that we found this outcrop on surface was, I don't know how to describe it, but it was quite rare considering the south zones, some places 100 meters of overburden. So finding this thing on surface and obviously drill testing it this past fall and getting some of those numbers, you realize the value that's likely sitting right there on surface. And there's many ways. I'm roundabout way here, but Paul, there's certain permits you can get in terms of for a bulk sample, and essentially it'd be I think the maximum would be about 10,000 tons for something in this scenario. And being it would be all permits tend to be I believe are all in the same, they put them all in the same category now, but something like this, given its size near surface, it would certainly take a lot less time than a full-on big mine. So, but 10,000 ton would be something we'd be looking at here. And, we feel Franz anywhere around about number, say 40,000 ounces on surface certainly equates to, at that grade, you certainly see some value there, at least compared to the rest of our zones, just sitting there on surface. So it just kind of puts things in perspective a bit there. But to answer your question about 10,000 tons, and we're already sort of getting the ball rolling in that the permitting aspect of that as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You throwing out that 40,000 ounce ballpark.
Nope. Nobody, please put that here on. That's very. I got now 66 participants here, but that's something more or less. That would be an average. I mean, we could see more, especially with Peter liking this target as we move to the. And I believe the other question, Paul, there was about the outcrop. Is it likely, given the Robert? Maybe you can just read the exact question because I don't seem to have.
Yeah. So given the elevation change to the northwest of the Franz, would you not expect a little bit more outcrop, Peter?
Yeah, we did have a prospecting crew in there, and we did find some more intriguing outcrop. That's how we found the curtain showing in those historic trenches from 1960s. So there's not much overburden in that area, not like over South Zone. So yeah, and so there, we can go back in there, and now that we got the key thing is that area has been kind of all burnt up now with the forest fires going back from August 2021. So, we definitely want to get boots back on the ground there now that it's been basically cleared out by the forest fires there. So,
and then a question about the recoveries. I imagine I know you've done recovery work, but maybe you can address what the recoveries were, gold and silver at the South Zone.
Yeah, recoveries offhand were for the South Zone, which we assume would be similar, just given that it's likely the same veins or similar looking rheology and whatnot, Peter. But we were at maybe Sean, do you have numbers at 96%, I believe, when both gold, silver there. So
it was 95% gold recovery, 96% silver, and then that was with your basic standard industry process for this type of gold metallurgical recoveries. And just to touch upon also, Gareth mentioned earlier about the underground model. I mean, we did the pit model was done initially, and it's not in the pit constrained model. That's not a development strategy. This very well could be the best way forward. Could be an underground model or an underground development. Which means you'd be looking at a smaller tonnage operation, maybe 1,000, 1,500 tons per day. If this was an open pit, you'd probably be looking maybe closer to 6,000 to 8,000 tons per day. But regardless, both is going to require development time. And this is why having something like the Fran Zone, which is high grade at surface, could play a significant role in generating higher IRRs. This could be your feedstock for as you develop, whether it's an underground or an open pit.
And then one more question from the audience, and then I'm going to throw out a question. Battery metals, guys, got any lithium? And I mean, obviously I'm joking, but obviously there's more than just gold and silver at the Shovelnose and even at Skoonka and the other projects. Is there anything notable, anything worth following up on? Copper, cobalt, etc.
I'll let Peter speak to this. Just first, I will say though, being that we're right next to the Nicola volcanics, which is not far, which is the same belt as the Highland Valley, the Brenda mine, the Craigmont mine, all these big sort of porphyries. There we certainly see copper, and these typical epithermal models. You're often come into the base metal zones below your high grade gold and silver. So that's when I'll let Peter chime in here. But yes, we have seen copper. We do have a copper showing to the north end. In terms of lithium, I would say we do test, but with little to no lithium. It's certainly not economic. But Peter, maybe you could talk a little bit more of the potential base metal potential, I guess, when it's in and around here where that intrusive is. We don't know for sure, but it is around here for sure.
Yeah. So at Shovelnose, not so much under the South Zone, but we do hit the basement rock on which the Spences Bridge group rests on, and that basement rock is granodiorite of Triassic age related to the Nicola belt. So, and occasionally we see, for example, in the Friends area where we caught a bunch of this basement rock, we do see a bit of copper mineralization, and we occasionally see this where the granodiorite becomes a little more orangey, a bit more potassic altered. So we're kind of paying attention to any sort of, there is a possibility with all this granodiorite that we see to the east, north, west, and sort of southwest of the South Zone area. Pretty much all the drilling we've done on Shovelnose, aside from the South Zone, where the Spences Bridge is quite deep and thick, but elsewhere, the Spences Bridge group is no more than tens of meters to a few hundred meters, and we're drilling into the basement. And this basement, we always seem to be hitting the granodiorite. So we're kind of monitoring and looking out for where we might, where we see some more potassic alteration. Do we have a potentially a porphyry? A buried porphyry deposit. So that's something we keep in the back of our minds when we drilled through the Spences Bridge group into the underlying basement rock, and we did see a bit of copper in the Franz area. Nothing, nothing of significance, but
yeah, that's a great answer, and that's something I didn't know either. So thinking back to the South Zone, discovery in late 2018, I recall that Westhaven had drilled like 10 or 11 holes that year, and there was a little smoke, there were some nice intercepts, but you weren't quite in the spot yet. You weren't at the sweet spot of the zone. And then hole 12 got better, hole 14 got a lot better, hole 15 was amazing, right? You had a discovery on your hands. So thinking back to that and the process that led to those big intercepts 12, 14, and 15 from 2018 at the South Zone, how can you apply that learning to Skoonka and the program that you just finished at the end of last year, the results you had there, and where will you be targeting when you get back to Skoonka?
I'll once again let Peter finish this, but I will start because I think it's very important. When we did discuss Skoonka about the 12.8 meters at 20 grams that Strongbow and Almaden did drill back in 2005, we knew when we were drilling that, somewhat of a follow-up to that was drilled down dip. It wasn't hence when we drilled the 6 of 6 or whatever it was, that was more of a true width than what they drilled, just to let people know, because some people are going, you didn't replicate the 12 of 20. Well, that's the reason why. That was drilled quite down dip. We knew that, and we weren't going to go back and drill the same. It doesn't give anyone any honest information. So what we did there was drill where we thought it was going to be perpendicular and more true width. So just for that reason. But Peter, you can take that one in terms of why we think, how can we use that application on South Zone to Skoonka?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, one thing we noticed is that at Shovelnose is the like if you look at that vein zone 1 long section, it seems all a bulk of the mineralization. It's sitting at around around the 1,200 meter level, plus or minus 100 meters or so. So between like 100 and 1,300 meter level. So, and this is kind of typical of epithermals, is there is like a sweet spot, a pay zone in terms of the vertical zoning on the system. And going forward to Skoonka, I mean, it was pointed out by Strongbow that, it seems to be the mineralization, all those various zones we see, they're in the upper part of the Pemanus formation. First of all, there's 2 formations in the Spences Bridge group that we see throughout all 4 projects. The upper Spies formation, which is predominantly amygdaloidal basalts, and then the underlying Pemanus formation, which is a mixed bag of volcanics, tuffs, rhyolites to basalts. And it was Strongbow's work on Skoonka. They kind of noticed, yeah, the where you get this all this mineralization, both in the southern JJ Bermuda trend and the northern Deadwood background trend, all those showings, they're always in the upper part of the Pemanus formation, within 100 meters or so of the contact with the overlying Spies formation. So so that's suggesting that there was this there was like a paleo surface at the top of the Pemanus formation, and within 100 meters of that surface, that's where you're getting the gold dropping out. So we kind of again see this like a preferred horizon that seems to be controlling mineralization. So there's the idea that over, for example, at the JJ West is mapped as being the upper Spies formation, and that there's a down drop of this system, and that the JJ West is we got the entire system preserved. So anyway, so yeah, so that's just basically to kind of, these ideas kind of help target where we might, in terms of the vertical, where we're getting this preferred mineralization dropping out at Skoonka, that there is, again, this vertical control of mineralization in the top 100 meters or so of the underlying Pemanus formation. So, and we can kind of judge where we are looking at where the overlying contact is in the preserved areas of the overlying Spies Formation. So yeah, so again, this idea that there is a preferred horizon where the gold is dropping out. From what we learned, from what we saw at Shovelnose, that yeah, we're seeing the same thing basically at Skoonka. So,
and then one more follow-up question. I guess we could wrap it up. At Skoonka, you have multiple untested targets. They've never been drilled before. There's like at least 5 of them, including one called Zebra, which is also a big soil anomaly with a mag low, and it's a pretty large target area in the south end of the project. How far will you be able to advance those untested targets in this year's program?
Well, like I said, we're going to get boots on the ground, and we'll be, looking at as depending on our field crews and staffing. But we're going to be trying to get boots on the ground to as many of these targets as possible. But we do want to have an active summer field program up there. So it all depends on how the season progresses.
I was just going to say, sorry, Peter, I was just going to say, Robert, Zebra is an interesting one. It's hasn't had as much work as some of these other ones like Deadwood, Ember, or Backburn, but certainly warrants follow-up. Some very interesting numbers down there.
Hey, Ron, there's a few other questions in the Q&A we should get to.
Okay.
They're pertinent, please.
Okay, yeah. Well, I know the answer to this, but I guess everybody else doesn't. Have you had any interest from majors, site visits from majors? Anything you can say about that that's obviously not confidential?
I'd say yes. Yes, and I mean, we can't really say a whole lot other than that we've had quite a bit of interest. I think as we've told many people in meetings, I think people want to see a bit more advanced, a bit more gold found. And but yes, we've had quite a few people, including others, mid-tiers, other companies up having a look. Pollard, sounds like you want to maybe say something there.
Yes, this time of year, our properties are under snow, so site visits typically take place from Q2, Q3. This is the time of year where we have people in the data rooms, and we've had at least half a dozen new companies sign CAs in the Q4 of last year, which typically supersedes the site visits. And with regards to majors interest, I mean, obviously, we've had Franco cut us a big check that included us. That was after a site visit as well, and that's really one of the selling features of a site visit. Is as soon as a major mining mid-tier, as soon as anyone that's in this business steps foot on the property, the first things they typically say is, "This will be a mine someday," right? It's because you have all of the things that make a mine are mainly in place right now, whether it's infrastructure, access, energy. I mean, we got a hydro line to the north of the property. We got natural gas pipelines running on either side. You have a city nearby that would cartwheel if we were able to bring a whole bunch of high-paying jobs to the area. So we're pretty confident this is going to be a nice cash flowing asset at some point in time in the future. And another question I saw was, when are we likely to wrap economics around this? It's when we stop finding gold. If we go to an economic study too early, then it will just undersell the property, and we'll have to redo it at some point as well. And the first step would be updating the property-wide precious metals inventory, and then from there going to an economic study. And it's a little early to do that. We'll look to drill off at least zone 1 trend before updating that.
Yeah, that's great, Sean. And then one final summary question, because it's something that all investors will want to know, and obviously they can find it out if they want to look, but why don't you just tell them now? So how much cash does Westhaven have right now, and what are some catalysts that you can guide to over the next, let's say, 6 to 9 months?
Our cash position as of today is just a little over $7 million. As previously referenced, we filed for an exploration tax credit. This is something else that is a big benefit for being in British Columbia, is that the government effectively pays us to explore. For every hard dollar spent, we get 30 cents back from the government. This is to incentivize resource development. And so we filed for a $2.1 million exploration tax credit. Last year, we got it back in late June. The year before that, we got it back July. But regardless, having that, as the CFO, knowing that when we're spending money, we're creating a forward-looking asset, it puts a smile on my face. And then with regards to catalysts, near-term catalysts will be the resumption of drilling at the Shovelnose, underground resource estimate, which will be Q2. And then it'll be basically we're a drill bit story. It'll be constant news flow related to assays coming off the Shovelnose. Later in the summer, fall, assays coming off the Skoonka and so on.
And I'll just touch on that, Sean, well summarized. I'll just touch on that, Robert, where back to hydrothermal breccia 2 there, where Peter was just given a summary of, I think people got to remember, like back in 2018, as you just said, Robert, the first 11 holes, then you hit 18, 12, okay, you're on. Sometimes it doesn't take long in a new zone to realize. People think, look, when we've hit some things, it only takes a little to get to that and find that really high grade area, as Peter will attest. And sometimes we got to test all these areas to make sure we haven't missed it and we know where we might be in the system. So it can only be a matter of time before we hit another, 23 meters or 37 grams. I think it's, and of course we got a lot of outside areas to test. And as Sean said there, we're a drill bit story, and that's really what we are here. It's catalysts are going to be finding more of these south zones. That's our goal of this year.
Great. Thanks for those answers, guys. And it's been a pleasure to be a part of the Westhaven story since early 2018, and it's just amazing to see this come together. And I can't wait to see the final chapters be written over the coming years, and hopefully it's a great ending for everybody. Thanks for your time and all the information.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.